for attractive women, is this, like, how big of a concern is sexual harassment? Like, none of you guys are working with Harvey Weinstein out here, but is it actually common for attractive women to actually be harassed in the workplace?
I would say yes.
Really?
Yeah. But with a caveat that it depends on the woman's comfort level, because harassment is subjective. So, for example, if you're sending me explicit messages, like, yes, that's a clear delineation of sexual harassment. But my brother actually had an instance where he was pulled into an HR situation, and he had just put his hand on the back of his assistant and said, can you tell them that I need 5 more minutes, like, to go tell the new clients, like, just give me a second. And that
innocent,
like, just
Like,
right?
hey,
yeah. So that was an incident. So I think it really just depends on what you deem sexual harassment, and I feel for guys sometimes, because how do you know where that line is? I don't know, that's subjective.
And when folks say things like, believe all women, I have a question, why? Really, why? Because I am inclined to believe stories of sexual abuse, I really am. But when folks say believe all women, you can't believe all women any more than you can believe all men or believe any other group of people. And to suggest that women are inherently more believable than men is sexist. To say that men don't deserve the same due process as women is sexist. And I believe that men shouldn't act like pigs. I've been only advocating this since I was a teenager. I'm the only man in America who was a virgin until I was married, and proud of it. I've been advocating for a higher standard of traditional behavior on the part of men, literally my entire public career. But that doesn't mean that you get to carve out a section of crimes that don't require evidence.
A twist of fate. Women are now facing the unintended consequences of the MeToo movement. And guess what? They have no one to blame but themselves. A forthcoming study in the journal Organizational Dynamics reveals how men's behavior toward their female colleagues has hilariously shifted since the movement gained momentum. Brace yourself. 27% of men now avoid one-on-one meetings with female coworkers. Yes, nearly a third of men are now terrified to be alone in a room with a woman. Who knew office life could turn into a horror movie? But wait, there's more. A solid 21% of men admit they hesitate to hire women for positions involving close interaction, like business travel, and 19% confess they'd think twice about hiring an attractive woman. Sorry, ladies, it looks like being pretty is now a career liability. The research, conducted in early 2019 across various industries, shows a disturbing, and let's be honest, comically ironic, trend. In 2018, when #MeToo was all the rage, 15% of men were reluctant to hire women for jobs requiring close interpersonal interactions. Fast forward to 2019, and that number had jumped to 21%.
So a paper came out recently that looked at the impact of the Me Too movement on academia, and it actually shows that post-Me Too, women's productivity fell largely due to fewer collaborations with male researchers. The paper shows that this drop is most pronounced at universities where the perceived risk of sexual harassment accusations is highest. So the actual findings comparing research before and after the movement are right here, and as you can see, after the Me Too movement, collaborations with male researchers inside the same institution fell to close to zero. The author points out that men feel like if they accidentally say the wrong thing, they could be canceled or fired. She also notes that institutions that have clear policies on sexual harassment help reduce this perceived risk. And this isn't just in academia. The paper also cites a 2018 study which showed that 60% of male managers are uncomfortable participating in common activities with women due to the same concerns. And a curious finding of the study was that men make up for the loss in this collaboration by just collaborating more with other men, whereas women don't make up for it at all. The author concludes her findings by saying that Me Too was important for raising awareness, but it's also increasingly important for institutions to have really clear sexual harassment guidelines.
The Me Too movement has become big enough to encompass everything, and diffuse enough to risk becoming nothing at all. As it descends the ladder from rape to bad dates, it's becoming a category big enough to be meaningless. 4 months ago, we learned the shocking news about Harvey Weinstein. Soon after, we heard about more monsters in everyday places. The Me Too hashtag took off and a movement was formed. More women came forward, more powerful men were fired. But just as quickly, some men were unfairly caught in the crossfire. Matt Damon said that groping someone's butt was different from sexually molesting a child. The mob said he was callous, misinformed, and part of the problem. An anonymous woman described a disappointing date with Aziz Ansari, and suddenly, bad hookups were added to the list. Some women said the problem was the male power structure itself. And soon, smashing the patriarchy was added to the long list of goals. It seemed that almost every woman had some kind of experience or goal that she wanted to add to the agenda. No problem was too small or too vague to be included, so long as a man was to blame. The women's movement in America began at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848, and it also included a long list of goals. Soon enough, leaders focused on one goal: suffrage. It was a reckoning, a watershed moment, and it changed the country forever. If Me Too is going to change America, it needs to focus on its original and most serious goal: ending the kind of workplace sexual harassment that has plagued women ever since they entered the workforce.
It went from a supportive movement to a full-blown witch hunt. Really disappointing. And yet, when men take steps to ensure they don't harass women, they get criticized. Wonder why? Oh wait, they want certain men to stick around, but even those guys are hightailing it out of there. There was a woman who published a blog post about quitting her job because she was being harassed. But reading her story, it turns out the harassment was a guy sending her an email asking her out on a date. She said she felt pressured and quit. She even posted the full email, which was just him asking if she was single and if she'd like to grab coffee. Not the smoothest move, sure, but does it really warrant blasting him on the company-wide network? Seems like a huge overreaction. So there you have it.
But tonight, one retired CEO is speaking out about why he thinks this might end up having the wrong effect on women in the workforce.
Steve, Tricia, well, this new wave of women standing up against sexual misconduct has led to all sorts of changes. But tonight, one CEO believes it may be preventing women from getting the jobs they want.
From the entertainment industry to the gaming world, women everywhere are standing up against sexual misconduct in the workplace.
It's a new day. It is the era of the woman now.
The latest case has brought this movement right to the Las Vegas Strip. Casino mogul Steve Wynn stepping down as CEO yesterday after allegations he sexually assaulted employees. But is time really up?
I have a big concern, and it's what's going to happen in hiring going forward.
Mark Yosoloff is the director of UNLV's School of Gaming and Innovation and hired hundreds of men and women as former CEO of Shufflemaster. He says this movement will make it tougher for women to get hired, especially when they're up against a qualified man.
They might elect to hire the man because they are concerned that down the road, whether they do anything wrong or not, there might be a she said, he said.
Yosoloff says current CEOs he knows have already opted not to sit in meetings alone with women in fear they would do something to spark a complaint.
It's a craziness that no executive wants to have to face.
Many people, including myself, only became aware of the Me Too movement in 2017 when Rose McGowan, a white wealthy woman who was a famous actress, brought it up. But it was actually started all the way back in 2006 by Tarana Burke, an African-American social activist. Women of color have been speaking up about sexual abuse in low-income workspaces for ages, but they never garnered the same attention as a rich white actress.
There's been some backlash about Me Too and some anxiety, as you might imagine.
Many male managers and owners are feeling a little bit more tentative when working with and managing their female workers.
Listen to this. A side result, an unintended consequence of the Me Too movement has popped up. Male executives and managers, some are now saying they are afraid to work with and mentor female colleagues in the workplace. So we're trying to find out, is it too hard to see the difference between mentoring and harassment?
Listen, I can't give any more information, but I fear I may have girl bossed a bit too close to the sun.
A large percentage of male managers were concerned about working with women one-on-one in the workplace. They were concerned about mentoring women. They were saying they were afraid to have meetings with women, to travel with women, and so on. It indicates that there are anxieties and fears that we need to address.
The movement meant to protect women has also turned men into cautious, second-guessing wrecks in professional settings, creating a new set of laughable challenges for women in the workplace. Who would have thought trying to navigate office politics could get even more awkward? The #MeToo movement where every workplace interaction between men and women feels like an HR horror show just waiting to happen. Now, some men treat female colleagues like ticking time bombs, avoiding them like the plague for fear of being falsely accused of harassment. Who needs mentorship and professional growth when you can just stick to your own gender bubble, right? And let's not forget the confusion. With the lines between appropriate and inappropriate behavior blurrier than ever, everyone's walking on eggshells, scared to say or do anything that could be misconstrued. Who knew workplace interactions could be this much fun? Welcome to the new era of professional relationships, where paranoia and awkwardness are the hot new trends.
Earlier this year, I had the displeasure of dealing with a female coworker harassing a male coworker. A male subordinate comes to me to report the female subordinate. She decided that she wanted his opinion on fellatio techniques. She asked him because he's openly gay. I went with him to HR to report. HR calls everyone involved to get their side. At this point, the female employee realizes the male employee snitched and begins bad-mouthing him. HR hands down punishment based on zero tolerance policy. 3 days unpaid suspension for the male victim, but only 1 day unpaid suspension to the female employee because she's pregnant and we can't cause too many problems. The male employee came back from suspension with legal representation. The female employee came back and all the male employees avoided her and any situation where they would need to be alone with a female employee.
Now, here's a quick one about a gal who she, as well as her female coworkers, are having a meltdown because a guy at work isn't paying attention to them. And as I said, women, they need attention and validation the same way plants need sunlight and water. And how if a guy rejects them, either rejects their advances or doesn't pay attention to them, they lose their freaking minds. Title: A colleague at work, a 27-year-old male of 1 year, refuses to socialize with me, a 24-year-old female, or any of the women in our office. Oh, the travesty. There are plenty of other horrible things going on in the world, but nothing is as horrible as a guy, God forbid, not paying attention to you and your friends. She says here, "Hi all. I'm posting this on alternative site because I know a few of my friends are following me on here, and I don't want this spilling out until I have some clear thoughts on what I want to do." Oh, you're trying to say you don't want any drama because something tells me you like drama. So early last year, our firm hired Dan, a 27-year-old male. In the first few weeks, he was really quiet and didn't talk much, and that's just how we thought he was. Every conversation with him was short and to the point and never deviated from work, aside from pleasantries, have a nice weekend, etc. About 2 months ago, he started becoming a bit more friendly with the guys in our office, and they would hang out every so often after work and have normal conversations. Isn't it interesting that she and her friends are really paying close attention to what this guy's doing? However, whenever any of the girls in the office tried to do so, he would quickly change the conversation back to just work or not reply. Even now, after a year of Dan working with us, he straight up refuses to socialize with the girls in the office, and he's making them feel uncomfortable. Oh, now he's the bad guy. He's making us feel uncomfortable. Maybe he's sticking to business. Maybe he's worked at a place where the girls act like it's high school and wants nothing to do with it. Or maybe he's become very RP'd, understands about MG Tau, things like that, knows the Mike Pence rule, and he's doing that for a good reason. But he's making you uncomfortable. He avoids any discussion of himself outside of work-related events and future plans and doesn't ask any of the girls either. Aware as he is, what can I only assume, pretty good friends with the guys in the office. Even on work meals out to celebrate events, he's only doing the bare minimum when it comes to conversation with the girls, where again with the guys, he talks to them like there is no problem whatsoever. I don't know if I'm overreacting. You sure about that? But one of the girls is considering going to HR about this because she is saying it's creating a hostile work environment. Dan treats us like he treats clients we work with, cordial and strictly about business, and it's wearing thin now. Any advice is appreciated. Okay, she asked for advice, so I'll give some advice. You and your friends need to grow the F up. You're 24 years old, so I'm assuming all the female coworkers are probably in the 20s. We all know what generation they're in, between the Z-tards and the millennials.
It's rough being a man in this world. Who knew a simple hello could spell the end of a career? It's a wonder any work gets done with everyone tiptoeing around, scared that a misplaced compliment might lead straight to the unemployment line. Sure, it makes perfect sense to avoid interacting with women altogether. Why bother with professional relationships when you can just stick to your bros? After all, why take the risk when one false move could bring everything crashing down? This is a classic tale of gender bias in action. It's a story we've heard far too often. Picture this. A woman harasses her male colleague, but when he dares to speak up, he's the one facing the consequences. How could this happen, you ask? In a world where gender roles are often unfairly skewed, the idea that a man could be a victim of harassment seems to baffle some. Instead of receiving support and understanding, he's met with disbelief and scorn. After all, men are supposed to be tough and impervious to such advances, right? The irony is palpable. A man harassed by a woman is often seen as weak or incapable, while the woman's actions are brushed aside or even excused. And it's not just men who are wary of women these days. There's a growing trend of women expressing reluctance to hire other women. According to a 2018 survey, over 10% of both men and women indicated they were less inclined to hire attractive women than they were in the past. Note, newer data regarding women's attitudes is not yet available. It's quite the comedic turnaround, isn't it? After years of men bearing the brunt of #MeToo's reckoning, we're now seeing some women facing their own comeuppance. Suddenly, the tables have turned, and it seems that no one is immune to the consequences of their actions. And that's it for today on Sigma Traits. Make sure you hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring that notification bell. Support this channel through membership. You can also support through PayPal link in the description. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. See you all tomorrow.